Old School Bodybuilding Clothing Company. If leg day was yesterday and now you're wondering why toilets are so damn low, you are definitely old school. If you're the only athlete at your gym that knows there's a contest today and it's to see who trains the hardest, you are old school. OSBBC.com for the hardest training athletes.
After working hard at the gym, you need a mattress that works as hard as you do. Spinalign has engineered the perfect mattress for you and your active lifestyle. Don't compromise your recovery with inferior sleep. Order your Spinalign mattress today.
Hey guys, we're super excited to be here at the LA Fit Expo. It's our third year in a row. And what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be launching a tasty pastry. It's a low-carb Pop-Tart. It's got 3 to 4 grams of net carbs. And we love this show. This is our best place to be in LA.
RX Television on RxMuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, better known as hashtag Ask Dave, your 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. All your questions, diet, training, supplementation, IFBB pros, news, whatever's on your mind, it is all on the table. So we now bring in Dave Palumbo. Dave, it's been a crazy and, in the words of Chris Bumstead, wacky 2020, especially in the sport of bodybuilding. Obviously, there was so much mystery as to whether or not the Olympia would even happen. And it's all really started right after the Arnold Classic. Of course, the Arnold Sports Festival canceled, but then right as the Arnold Classic wrapped up, that's when the pandemic took hold of the world, and it just caused all sorts of chaos. And again, obviously, we know of the ramifications around the world, but in particular in bodybuilding. You and Chris Bumstead did a full 2020 wrap-up this past Sunday night on Heavy Muscle Radio.
Yeah, we did the radio show this past week with Chris. He's down in Miami with his family for the next 3 weeks in one of his condos down there. The reception is horrendous in his building. He's got terrible Wi-Fi. I was screaming at him, but he was he was a little irritated because he was still tired from the whole trip from the Olympia. So we pushed through the show live, and the reception wasn't good. So sorry about that, guys. Next week we'll have that rectified. He'll be in his car in front of Jerry's Deli doing the show. But it was fun nonetheless. It's funny because we're coming to the end of a year that was just something you could never have predicted in a million years. And yet somehow, out of all that chaos and all that bad news that was going on all year round, we wound up with an exciting finale at the Olympia with a new Mr. Olympia, Big Ramy. We have a new 212 Olympia, Sean Clarita. Chris Bumstead reestablished himself as the guy to beat in Classic, and so to me, I felt like we ended on a high note, Sid.
No, absolutely. I mean, again, when you consider the uncertain nature, Dave, of the sport, of the contest cancellations, postponements, again, all the questions were there as to whether or not there would even be a Mr. Olympia. And I know people probably wondering, well, so many serious things going on around the world, obviously, but again, it's the bodybuilding channel. As bodybuilding, as the sport, it is the toy department of life. But as this sport particularly is concerned, Dave, you consider throughout the course of the year, so many athletes, so many top bodybuilders, struggle to have consistent access to gyms, training facilities. And I mean, we saw the imagination take over, right? I mean, we saw bodybuilders having to resort to lifting furniture, lifting household products, whatever they could do to, keep getting their training, sessions in. However, those sessions may have come via bans or what have you. But It's been a crazy, crazy 2020, but obviously it ended on a very neat note. So that episode of Heavy Muscle Radio right now on RxMuscle.com, the RxMuscle YouTube channel. Before we go to the questions, Dave, you did a very at length and I dare say very, very, very intriguing interview with Chad Nichols. Chad Nichols, of course, the coach for Big Ramy. Big Ramy coming off his win at the 2020 Olympia. So I'm sure you had a lot of angles to discuss with Chad. Obviously, there was a fun of panic mode between him, Dennis James, and yourself. You want to give the audience a little primer as far as what they can expect from that interview.
Well, one of the things, just going back to, not being able to train, I didn't know this, but Ramy had been stuck in Dubai for 3 months. Right after that whole COVID thing hit, he had a connecting flight there, and he never was to get home to Kuwait. And what people don't know is that he was training originally at a private gym owned by one of the sheikhs there, but that was shut down. Like Dubai was so shut down that even Ramy couldn't train for like 2 months. So he did nothing. That's why they couldn't do the New York Pro or Tampa. He was literally stuck in a place where he could not work out, which might have worked out better for him because a lot of his injuries got to heal up. But when I did the interview with Chad, a lot of people had interviewed him already, since the show, and I didn't want to just do another interview, so we really kind of like went off topic a little bit. We talked about his son, and if you ever follow his Instagram or his Facebook, he's always posting pictures of Morgan, his son, crazy strength he had. Of course, we went into Ramy, we went into Ronnie Coleman and Dennis Wolf and all the people that he's helped, and I thought it was a really good interview. We did it like at 2 a.m. too. Chad's up late like I am, so it was we were both like high on life, so to speak, and so it was a good interview. And of course, I busted his balls a little bit about the whole panic mode thing, because that's like their new I guess you could say hashtag that they use, panic mode. And the funny thing is that he actually admitted that they were in panic mode, because he came right out and said to me, when you watch this the interview, that he was very worried that Ramy was not going to make it these last couple of weeks, because Ramy was starting to shut down, and he was like and people were emailing him and calling him and saying, "Oh, Ramy needs a break. Can you give him a little more food?" Like he had like advocates, like lobbyists working for him, like to try to get Chad to take it easy on him. And Chad was like, "No freaking way! I'm getting him over here to the U.S. So we can keep an eye on him." And really, that won the Olympia for Ramy, because I think that was the thing that Ramy never was able to do, get from almost being perfect to perfect. And that's the hardest part. I tell people that all the time. You got to be willing to die. You got to feel like death. You got to feel like, and of course you're not going to die, but it just is very uncomfortable. And a lot of people are not used to that discomfort. And Ramy, everything came so easy to him muscle-wise that he never had to suffer that much. And so I think with, the Chad bringing him over here, putting him with Dennis, watching over him, making sure he got to the gym and did his cardio and did his posing, that's what won it for Ramy. We knew Ramy had the tool set. I think he just didn't have the push he had with the team that he put together. So, congratulations to all of them and who were involved in that, and of course Ramy for winning the Olympia. Great interview, though. You're going to love it when it goes up, guys.
So it's going to be dropping this afternoon. Keep it locked to RxMuscle.com. Let's go to the questions. The first 2 questions, of course, from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. The first question, Dave, can your SOMALYZE product be used as an anti-anxiety supplement to be taken as a start of the day?
No, I wouldn't do that. SOMALYZE is got melatonin and GABA in it. Okay, so that's really going to help you go to sleep at night. Okay, melatonin should be taken before bed, because it's signaling to your brain and to your body time to shut down and go to sleep. So that's when that should be used. It's also, in this whole COVID time, and Sid, I hate to say it, I'm not going to name names. I know a lot of people who are at the Olympia who are coming down with COVID now, and we knew this was going to happen. And guys, Demineralize for your chelated zinc and minerals, OmegaLyze to reduce blood clotting and inflammation, okay? Those are 2 very important supplements that you should be using. And you know what? We know that COVID depletes melatonin. So SOMALYZE before bed is absolutely going to help the body combat COVID. And if you take a couple of 6 ounces of diet tonic water 2-3 times a day to help absorb that zinc, I'm telling you, you're going to get over it with no problem at all. If you want to relax during the day, however, and you do have stress, there's another product I sell actually on DavePalumbo.com called Euphoria. And it's the letter U, the number 4, E, and an A. And it has GABA-like metabolites in there, not melatonin, just GABA metabolites in there that will create a relaxation for you without, inducing, sleep in a sense. If you want to relax and sleep because you're tired, you will, but it will relax you. And that is a very popular product. A friend of mine, Brian Cunningham, makes it, and I sell it because I've been selling it for years, and people just like it. It's kind of like a GHB replacement almost. Very all natural ingredients and amino acids in there. And I'm telling you, people love Big Lenny loves. That's one of Big Lenny's favorite products, actually. So you might want to try that, but you don't want to use you don't want to do SOMALYZE during the day. Not a good idea because of the melatonin.
So Big Lenny, it's Euphoria rather. Big Lenny approved. There you put the stamp.
Not cookie cutter, no.
Second question again from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. Dave, what do you think of the carnivore diet? Is it just more hype?
Look, the carnivore diet is essentially the ketogenic diet. It's my ketogenic diet essentially. It's high protein, moderate fat, no carbs. The only thing I don't like about the carnivore diet is that they don't want, there's no vegetables. It's too extreme in one direction or another. So the concepts of it and the way it works is good. I think the science is sound, but I think it's too extreme. In other words, the right answer is never on one side or on the other side. It's somewhere in the middle. So there's nothing wrong with incorporating vegetables that are very low carb, very low net carbs, like green beans and asparagus and some spinach. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever, as well as nuts and oils and stuff like that. So that come from plants. You don't have to only eat meat products. There's, it's silly when you think about it that you have to go to one extreme to get the results. That's not true. So, but it's the lack of carbohydrates that is what's creating the fat loss and and keeping your improving your blood chemistries. So remember, it's never one or the other. If you like the idea of it being so regimented in one direction, there's nothing wrong with following it. I just think that it's too extreme. It's unnecessarily extreme, put it that way. That's the best way to put it. Now, those two questions come from the Dave Palumbo Experience app, which is an app that I have. It's $29 a month. It's basically get access to all my videos, all my writings. We do a Q&A every single week, a Q&A video on there that only the app members get to see. And then you, as a member of the app, you could actually ask me as many questions as you want, and they get answered in a public forum, so everyone who's an app member gets to see everyone's questions and everyone's answers, so that it's kind of like an information, like a learning thing. I always say it's kind of like having your own coach in your pocket. Plus, we put out a workout every single week, a new workout. So if you want to change up your workouts and have something different, there's one up there every single week. So it's very popular. Over the Christmas holidays, there was a lot of signups because people obviously were giving it as gifts and stuff like that. I know you guys are coming off Christmas and New Year's now. This is a great little gift or a New Year's resolution type thing for yourself. If you can't afford coaching or you want to just add it in addition to coaching, it's a reference guide, and it's going to only make you smarter, and it's going to make you more informed and give you the ability to have your own little Siri in your pocket, Dave Palumbo, to answer your questions. So hopefully you guys are enjoying it.
Let's go to our Instagram questions. Again, if you're not already following us, our handle is official_RxMuscle. Now, over the weekend, Dave, I know I sent you this. I don't know why it took me so long to even think about this, but I discovered there is an actual handle out there at RxMuscle. So I guess the plan now is to approach him to see what it would take to maybe get the handle from him or whatever. I'm sure. I
hear Steve Blackman owns it. Just kidding.
But nonetheless, our handle is official_RxMuscle. Again, that's where we're taking questions for this show. That's where we load up our feed, our story with whatever is going on in and outside of the bodybuilding world. Obviously, leading into the Olympia, we loaded up with progress pictures with questions engaging the audience regarding their thoughts, and we'll probably do that in regards to 2021. And so again, if you're not already following official_RxMuscle, and again, if you're not already following us on YouTube, hit the subscribe button below, hit the notification bell. You're not going to miss any of our upcoming shows or segments. You
know what a good reason to subscribe to and turn on the notifications for the YouTube channel is? Because now I've been doing live broadcasts. Lee Priest and I might go live New Year's Eve. So if you... And I decide at the last minute to do these things. I don't plan these things. You're never going to see an advertisement saying, we're going live Monday. I'll just say, I'm going to go live tonight. I'll text Lee or I'll text, whoever. and we'll go live. So if you have the notifications coming to your phone, when I go live, you'll get the notification, pop it up on your phone, and this way you can go listen, so you can catch us live. A lot of the, when I go live late at night, a lot of times we get the Australians and the Europeans, but I know there's a lot of guys like me who stay up late, and so if you guys are not doing anything, you want those notifications coming to your phone, so make sure you subscribe and turn on the notification.
All right, so let's get into questions. The first one from Devin Michael Davis. Now, Dave, this is one that I know you've been getting a lot of questions about recently, and that's about kidney health and kidney function. So he wants to know, in general, how would you improve kidney health, kidney function? What can you do besides taking your kidney stuff product, foods, any sort of protocols? And I guess in terms of the kidney stuff, best way to use it to improve overall kidney function.
The kidney stuff product is great because what it does is it reduces, it kind of works the same way milk thistle works on the liver. Milk thistle on the liver will reduce the inflammation in the liver and open up the bile ducts so that the ducts can get rid of all the junk that's in the liver. Because a lot of times what happens is when inflammation happens in the liver, those ducts get pinched off, and then the junk gets backed up into the liver, and then it gets inflamed, and then you can get sclerotic, fibrotic tissue laid down, and you don't want that. Same thing with the kidneys. If the kidneys can't filter the blood because the vessels are getting constricted a little bit because there's inflammation around there because they're stressed out, they can't filter the blood properly, and then you get back up in the kidneys and they start becoming sclerotic and collagen laid down, and then they don't function anymore. So what the kidney stuff does is it reduces the inflammation around the kidney tubules and it allows them to filter better. So it's a good product to take year round if you really want it, if you're a neurotic like I am, or if you're going to the doctor and you're getting your blood test done and you're noticing your creatinine is higher than it should be. It's a good idea to do a month or two of it. Remember now, the liver regenerates very quickly. The kidneys will regenerate too, but they take a little longer. So if you have high creatinine, it might take you 6 months to get it down to normal if it's 1.5 or 1.6 or something like that. Whereas liver function, if it's high or you're showing inflammation in your liver, you probably within like 3 weeks of doing like a liver stable product that I sell at DavePalumbo.com, which is Bill Llewellyn's liver product, you can probably get that back to normal really quickly because the liver does regenerate faster. So it's a good idea to have that in mind. Now, keeping in mind that, obviously staying well hydrated, it's drinking enough liquids during the day so the kidneys can flush, but not over drinking. A lot of people don't realize, Sid, that if you over drink, I know some guys, they drink like 3 gallons a day because they think they're going to like burn fat better or something like that. Number one, you water down your electrolytes, which is no good, which can cause cramping. But number two, the kidneys have to filter everything you drink. So if the kidneys are already under stress for whatever reason, you're on anabolics and your blood pressure is maybe a little high, and now you're putting in tons and tons and tons of, even if it's just water, they got to filter all that water. That's making them work extra. So don't over drink. I think that's a big problem. People think they equate drinking water, burning fat, getting leaner. That's not the case. Drink enough so that you're hydrated, but don't over drink where you're going to be, like I said, putting the kidneys under tremendous stress as well. And so that's another thing a lot of people, don't realize. They think, the more you drink, the better the kidneys and the healthier they are, but that's not necessarily the case. And of course, the most important thing for kidney health is blood pressure. You got to keep your blood pressure under control. And if you're even if you're a little high, even if you're like 135 over 85, get on a mild blood pressure med. Get on an ACE inhibitor or an angiotensin receptor blocker like telosartan, or an ACE inhibitor like I take ramipril. They're essentially side effect free, and they're going to keep your blood pressure lower. And you know what? You don't have to worry about the fact that you're damaging your kidneys. Because let's face it, when you get big, and you're over 250, you're going to get, more than likely, your blood pressure is going to go up. It just happens. And so by taking this blood pressure medication, at least you're alleviating that. The other option is to lose the weight, and you're not going to do that if you're trying to put on mass. So understand that's, look, you take an anti-estrogen, right? Because to prevent high estrogen and side effects from estrogen. Guys nowadays take an anti-prolactin like cabergoline, or Dostinex being the brand name of it, before they even know if they have high prolactin because they want to prevent it. So guys, it only makes sense to take a preventative to prevent high blood pressure. Take a blood pressure medication. I mean, what's the big deal? People have this thing like, if blood pressure medication means I'm sick. No, it's a preventative from damaging your kidneys, and that's really what it amounts to.
Let's go to Jinasudi. People say training legs boosts testosterone. How does this actually work scientifically?
anything that taxes the entire body and stresses it out essentially will increase growth hormone and testosterone release, because the body knows it has to that's its mechanism of coping with that type of stress and repairing the body. So, the compound heavy movements seem to induce the most testosterone release and GH release. Whereas if you're just kind of doing bicep curls, you don't quite get that same effect. So that's why a squatting, which is a compound movement that involves the entire body, deadlifting would be another example. Even bench pressing, to that sense, would probably induce the highest GH and testosterone release in the body naturally, because it involves the entire body, stabilization, core strength, and it's taxing to the nervous system as well. So the body, responds, especially if your body is working if you're healthy, by releasing more testosterone, by releasing more growth hormone.
Let's go to Inza. Interesting question here. Now, Dave, I remember last week you did a video sort of recapping Big Ramy's, I will say, heroic homecoming to Egypt. And that's something that I know you joked about, how that's something we might not ever see in this country, as far as a Mr. Olympia being treated to that kind of a reception. Well, earlier this morning, we posted a video on our Instagram from Iran, Hadi Chupan receiving a similar homecoming, obviously not to that grand scale that Big Ramy got, I mean, with a full reception ceremony, a full bus, but nonetheless, you see Hadi, dancing amongst people in the streets and everything. And he got that last year as well. But the question is this: could you see the Olympia, or say the Arnold Classic, any major bodybuilding event, moving to the Middle East in the future, given the sheer popularity of the sport and the possible business opportunities over there?
When AMI owned it, there was no chance of it, because they were not letting it out of their grips. But I think with Jake Wood, and his ego is he doesn't have an ego. He just wants the sport to be popular. I think if someone put up a good offer, they should bid out the Olympia. I don't see why not. I mean, I know that someone in Qatar wanted to hold it once, and they were willing to fly everyone in and pay for everything, all the judges and competitors and all the press, and Weider said no, or I don't. It was either Weider or AM. I don't know who it was at the time. So I think it would be a great idea to have it in Dubai or Qatar or one of these countries that are very U.S. friendly, and there's no worries of terrorism or anything like that there. And I think it would be great to move this thing around. I like the fact that they moved it to Florida. Let me tell you one thing about the Middle East and bodybuilding. When I went there in '96, remember, this is a long time ago. When we went to guest pose at this expo, there was 5,000 people in this audience to watch not only the show there, but the guest posers, which was Milo Sharsev, myself, Edgar Fletcher, Laura Bass, and I forget who else. There was one other person. But these people love bodybuilding. It's like going to a basketball game to watch LeBron James there. Matter of fact, there was a problem where I've told the story before, where someone punched someone out, and the show was delayed like 2 hours. Not one person left their seat. Okay, you would think they would say, "Oh, I'm sick of this. I'm leaving." They all waited for the guest posers. That was that's what they were there for. So bodybuilding is very respected in the Middle East, and that's why Ramy got the reception he did. That's why Hadi did. Whereas in the U.S., bodybuilding is looked at as like kind of like a circus, sport, and basketball and baseball and football. Those are the sports that are really revered here. So if someone wins the Super Bowl and they get off the plane, they get the ticket tape parade. So it's never going to change. That's just not the way the sport is here in this country. Maybe it might become, maybe some of these Mr. Olympias will get on a TV show now and again, but it's just not the same as it is. Whereas in the Middle East, those sports are revered. They don't really have football, American football and baseball and stuff like that there. So bodybuilding is one of the sports that is held in high esteem.
No, I remember we way back when, like 2015, when we had Bader Budai on Iron Debate. And I remember that we specifically asked him about where bodybuilding ranks in terms of the overall sports popularity in the Middle East, and he said there's soccer, and then there's bodybuilding, and there's every other sport. So I mean, you get the scale of how much reverence that the Middle Easterners have. Which goes to tell you, if you're an American, even though we have the best equipment and the best food, supposedly, maybe not anymore. They certainly, if you don't want to have to worry about getting arrested for having a stash of steroids on you, and you don't want to be vilified as being the villain, and you want to be
received as a hero if you do well, go live in the Middle East, because that's the place where they actually respect bodybuilding. It's sad that that's the case. And that's also a place you can go into a pharmacy there and buy whatever you want. They just don't, anabolics are not a big deal there. They're not uptight about that stuff. So it is it's sad the sense that bodybuilding was kind of started in the US, and in a sense it's the most popular in the US, but yet we don't even like, the lawmakers and the general population don't really even care about it that much. And so, and matter of fact, they like to make bodybuilders criminals and put them in jail because of the tools they have to use for their trade. And that's the slightly depressing part about the whole thing.
Let's go to Bali Abu. What's the best way to deal with hypogonadism? After leaving bodybuilding, people often face this. If you can enlighten us on this.
I mean, all hypogonadism means is that you're not producing testosterone. You're not producing the sex hormones from your gonads, which is in the male would be the testicles. And hormone replacement is the easiest solution. I mean, for people who don't want to go on an HRD dose, or a testosterone replacement shot, I mean, you could try HCG and just take that. I mean, I take a shot of HCG every 7 to 14 days, just to kind of give myself a little boost now and again. My levels are pretty good. Without it, I'm probably in the 400 to 500 range. But every once in a while, I like to get a little boost. So I'm not taking HRT because I don't feel low. I don't feel depressed. I don't feel tired. I'm only tired because I don't sleep because I have young kids. But if I get a good night's sleep, I feel great. So, but for people who literally have no testosterone production, like they go and get tested and they're 20 and they should be over 250, anywhere from 250 to 850. There's nothing wrong. Just go on hormone replacement, 100 to 200 milligrams a week. You got to tweak what works best and get you in that high normal range. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's the treatment. Look, if you were a kid, 16 years old or 17 years old, and you weren't going through puberty yet, and they went to the doctor and they checked you and you weren't producing testosterone, they're not going to just say, "Oh, you're too bad, buddy, you're screwed." They would put you on replacement. And that's the way it goes. I mean, if you need it, you take it. If you don't need it, then you don't have to take it. It's a personal choice.
2 Classic Physique / Chris Bumstead related questions. I'll try to send them together. The first one is, how does Chris Bumstead keep his waist so tight? Is there a specific method to it? If so, why don't other guys follow suit? Don't tell me it's just that he does vacuums. And then I guess the second part to that is, given that Chris Bumstead has now won the Classic Physique Olympia 2 times in a row, does this division benefit the taller competitor than the shorter athlete?
Well, to answer the last question, I think that the taller athlete always is got the advantage if they can achieve a level of development that fills out their frame, and I think Bumstead has. So Arnold won all those Olympias because he was the biggest, structure-wise guy out there, and he filled his frame out in a sense, at least in the areas which was important back in the 70s. Which is the arms, chest, shoulders, back, that kind of thing. Now, and he had a small waist. Bumstead's waist is small because he's got a small waist and he's got broad shoulders. He's got a very good bone structure, genetically speaking. He doesn't have an overabundance of muscle where it has nowhere to go, which is helpful too. And he'll never have a big waist because even if he puts an inch or two on his waist, it'll still look small because he'll probably add an inch or two to his shoulders. And that's just the way it goes. I mean, Flex Wheeler had a teeny tiny waist, okay? It didn't mean that he used less drugs than anyone, okay? No matter how big he got, his waist was still small, okay? It just looked proportionately smaller because he was so, the bigger his delts got and the better his V-taper was. So there's a big genetic component in bodybuilding. Look, I didn't have the best genetics in terms of structure goes, which is what held me back from getting to the pro level and being a good pro. But I was able to add muscle and I was able to get really, really lean. And those were my gifts. I didn't, but I was missing one of the components of being great. The guys who are great have it all. They have they have the structure, they have the muscle, and they have the conditioning. And of course, presentation is just something you work on and learn. But that's why bodybuilding is so hard, because it's not just hard work. I mean, anyone who works hard can put muscle on and get lean, but not everyone can be a great bodybuilder because of the fact that there's a genetic component that you cannot discount. And Chris has got it. That's why guys can't beat this guy, because he's genetically superior to them, just like the way Ronnie Coleman was. I mean, Jay worked just as hard, if not harder, than Ronnie Coleman, but he was having trouble beating him because Ronnie was genetically a little superior to him. And it wasn't until Ronnie started, having injuries and losing, some symmetry in his back that Jay was able to finally pass him. But Ronnie was already he was 40 years old at that point. So you can't discount genetics. I know it sounds like a cop-out answer, but it's true.
Time for a couple of more questions. Go to Gummy P Fitness. How do pros improve between prejudging and finals? So if you can give a little, revealing of the lifting the curtain of that a little bit. And then if you could speak to the backstage phenomenon of eating candy, simple carbs, before posing.
Well, the improvement thing is because I think guys are nervous. So and a lot of times prejudging is early in the day, which is not for the Olympia, but so what happens is a lot of guys come in drier and harder because they want to be shredded, and they don't want to overblow themselves. So a lot of times people err on the side of conservative, and maybe they come in a little too dry or a little too flat, And so what happens is they go back after prejudging, and then they eat and drink, and then they hydrate, and then the muscles fill out, and then they're of course more relaxed because prejudging is over, and they kind of feel a little bit more at ease. They get a better night's sleep that night. They wake up the next day, and then it's like their body looks like a fresh new body. You can't discount the mental aspect of the Olympia. It's nerve-wracking. Nerves raise cortisol levels, which mess people up and make them hold water, and then they have to take more diuretics to get rid of the water, and then they get too flat. So things go wrong when when your nerves get the best of you. Likewise, sometimes, like I said, I think like guys like Phil Heath always come in a little more conservative at prejudging to try to have a little bit more taper, and sometimes that doesn't work because then it makes the muscles get flat, and then they lose some of that round wowness. And then when they realize that they're too flat, they go back and eat. I have most of my guys the night before I have a burger and fries, and then in the morning I usually have pancakes just to fill them out, because if you're in shape, you pretty much can eat anything you want, and you're not going to screw yourself up as long as you're not over drinking. So that's usually what happens. As far as backstage, I never gave candy to my people. I'll tell you why. Because you might look good like 10 minutes after you have like some simple sugars backstage, but if they keep you up there for a very long prejudging, sugars don't last. They're not complex carbs. They come and go. And when they go and your blood sugar drops, you get a cold sweat. All of a sudden the tan starts running. You start getting the shakes. You don't want that on stage. So you're better off eating a little bit of starchy carbs, whether it be rice cakes. A lot of guys eat. Everyone has their own little baked potatoes and stuff like that, or sweet potatoes. This way, at least you have some sustained carbs in your system, so that if you do have a long prejudging, that you're not going to just crash all of a sudden because your insulin levels come too fast from the sugars and then drop your blood sugar. And so I never really did simple sugars backstage. Now, if you're eating a little bit of simple sugars with some complex carbs, that will buffer it a little bit, but sometimes it's a mistake to start doing crazy. If you're not eating simple sugars the whole diet, now you put them in, you're asking for trouble, I think.
Last questions from JM Motive, and whenever you get a new Mr. Olympia, and especially one as popular as Big Ramy, you start to get a little questions that may seem a little off the wall at times. Let's see how you answer this one. Would the Olympia winning version of Big Ramy have any chance of beating prime Ronnie Coleman?
I asked Chad Nichols the same question, and I'll give you the same answer as he gave. No. Ronnie was the greatest bodybuilder of all time. So, I mean, a better comparison was, I asked Chad, was Nasser at his best versus Ramy, and Chad and I both agreed that Ramy would have beat Nasser, but Ronnie was in a class of his own. I mean, you had to see him in person to really appreciate, who he was, because he had the greatest genetics probably of all time. And then he also had the best work ethic of all time on top of that. And he was willing to do anything you told him to do. So Chad just had to say, this is the game plan, and Ronnie stuck to it. And that's why he got such great results, He succumbed to, his body broke down after a while, from the crazy training he was doing. And just, he got old. That's what happens when you get older. Things don't work as well. But in his prime, man, he was unbeatable. I mean, Jay was really, really good. I mean, and he couldn't beat him. Flex was really, really good. Cormier, Nasser, these guys couldn't beat Ronnie because he was that good. There's no way Ramy would have beat Ronnie at his best, okay? And I have to preface that, at his best. So, but Ramy's pretty damn good and pretty damn freaky, and he has some body parts that are maybe better than Ronnie's, but maybe some of his posing is a little better than Ronnie's, because Ronnie wasn't the greatest poser, but Ronnie was unbelievable. I mean, back double bicep would have destroyed Ramy's back double bicep in my mind. The glutes and the hamstrings and the way the lower lats feathered out. I mean, the arms. I mean, Ronnie's arms were unbelievable. Even though Ramy's got good arms, Ronnie's arms were like, if you saw him in person, they were like ridiculous. You know, split biceps, and that's once again genetics. You know, so but you know what? Ramy doesn't have to beat Ronnie. He only has to beat the guys he's competing against. So he can do that for the next 10 years if he stays healthy. So, and that's, you know, I'm very happy that Ramy finally achieved what we all knew he was capable of. And I think that us as fans have been waiting, and finally he delivered the goods. So, and it was at the perfect time, because we were all a little down, and he kind of lifted up the bodybuilding world.
It's crazy. I mean, we were literally at that very fine line. I know we talked about this on Iron Debate a couple of weeks ago, and that is, there was a school of thought of, if he doesn't deliver the goods this time, does he get shifted into that once upon a time kind of a category? And then there was the other side of the coin where, is this the year? If there was ever to be a year that he finally delivers, that this will be the year. And of course, history would unfold. Big Ramy would deliver. Big Ramy would become 2020 Mr. Olympia. That's going to do for this episode of Ask Dave. Reminder right now on the channel, the 2020 year review with Chris Aceto and Dave Palumbo, of course, on Heavy Muscle Radio. That live right now. Dropping later today, we're going to release a couple of clips. Then the full interview is about 90 minutes long. Dave with Chad Nichols. Chad Nichols, of course, the coach of 2020 Mr. Olympia, Big Ramy. So a lot of stories to tell, a lot of interesting stories to tell, and of course, a lot of ball busting over the Panic Mode comments and upcoming Panic Mode t-shirts. Yes, those are going to be going into production very soon from Team Chad Nichols and, of course, Dennis James. So you're not going to want to miss that. Keep it locked to RxMuscle.com. For Tyler Shore and Dave Palumbo, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you next time.